You know, I gotta admit, the brand new vehicle airdrops which War Tycoon just added has to be one of the coolest updates they have actually done in a very long while. However, there are a lot of features and mechanics that it does actually have which a lot of people don't know about. Well, today I'll be showing you exactly just that. So anyway, let's just jump right into it. So here we have it, one of the first which a lot of people did actually talk about. I would love to actually mention it before we actually start with the important stuff. If you do go ahead and actually airdrop something on your head, well, you might actually figure out what's gonna happen. Let me show it to you. And there you have it. As it starts to drop on my head, I will immediately get crushed and I will pretty much die. Pretty realistic mechanic, and I'm very glad that this is a part of the game. So this can be pretty useful in terms of actual real fight scenarios, because you could truly use this against a lot of people who don't actually understand this mechanic and just try to drop something on their head. Now next up, this one is a little more interesting. Imagine you are just stuck in the middle of the sea and you really don't want to go back to your base or walk right into the metro station. So you decide to call in an amphibious vehicle, and you would actually expect it to just immediately start floating on the water the second you do so. Well, this is actually not gonna be the case particularly, because the exact second that the airdrop actually goes ahead and lands, it will immediately push the vehicle right under the water, and as you guys can see, the vehicle would fall. And a lot of people in this scenario would actually expect the vehicle to really not be able to do anything and just despawn after a while, and they will consider it dead. However, you can actually make this vehicle usable incredibly easily, because all you have to do is just quickly get inside of it before it actually goes ahead and despawns, and then it will immediately float up, and you guys will pretty much just be able to use it again. It's a very weird game mechanic, however, it can be useful for a lot of people, and I think it is pretty stealthy in some case scenarios. Now next up, the range of the support tablet is actually not going to be very high, because let's just say I want to spawn in any vehicle really. As you guys can clearly see, the range from me will not actually be too high. I believe it's around like 75 stats or something, so that kind of does suck, because it means that you guys are not going to be able to call in like an airdrop for your friend that's like at the back of the map or like far in the distance. You're not really going to be able to support your teammates with this. You're only really going to be able to support yourself, which I guess is understandable, but it kind of sucks that the range exists. However, in this update, another thing which was also added is that the airstrike which we normally have also has received some kind of range, because as you guys can clearly see, around, let's just say 200 stats or something, you guys will pretty much not be able to do an airstrike just like you were able to do airstrikes at long distances. Now you pretty much have to be very close to your opponent, which in my opinion, that does kind of suck, so I really hope that's gonna get patched next update. Now the next one which we are moving right into might actually be a little bit niche, but I still find it incredibly interesting. If you guys actually use the support tablet and decide to spawn in, let's just say any vehicle on top of the zoom world, or really any other ship, then you guys will get a very interesting surprise. And that exactly being is when the vehicle actually airdrops right on top, it will in fact immediately get destroyed, which will obviously mean that it will be doing explosive damage to things around it. And for example, here it landed on top of the zoom world and it actually did 2% of damage. So imagine a zoom world is like very low on health. You guys could really just try to spawn something on top of it if you're not able to do the damage yourself in any other way, or when you're fighting someone on top, or if there's any type of pest which is literally just sitting on the helipad, you could pretty much just spawn in the vehicle and try to kill them with the explosive damage or literally crush them. Now the next one over here is actually incredibly cool, and a lot of people do not actually think about this. However, it is just incredibly OP, because what you guys are actually able to do is spawn in pretty much any vehicle anywhere around the map. And what I mean by that is literally anywhere, which means that there are a lot of inaccessible spots which you could get into with ground vehicles. Well, now you're pretty much able to go anywhere. Like for example, I'd like to spawn a Terminator on top of this helipad. Well, you can actually do this now, and this will give you a huge advantage in a fight, because imagine there are a lot of planes which are just fighting. You decide like you want to shoot everyone out of the sky. Well, guess what? You spawn in a Terminator in here and you pretty much have the height advantage, or the missiles will just get to the planes a lot faster, considering the fact that you're pretty much on the same level as them when it comes to shooting. Because when you're actually going to be shooting enemies from way lower, you have to kind of like aim up, and just aiming overall becomes a lot harder while doing this. However, if you're on the same level as them, as you guys can see, it's so much easier to control the missile and understand its trajectory. So yeah, this will also be incredibly OP, and there are a lot of really cheap and good spots which I have to show to you. And by the way, the vehicle will not take any damage if it falls, which means you guys will just be able to jump down if you're put into a pretty difficult spot from planes or helicopters, or really any other vehicle which you are fighting, which is also great. A few spots which I happen to really like, which give you guys a pretty high tactical advantage against your enemies, is going to be dropping on the oil rigs, because the enemies most of the time are not able to actually fight you from there, and they would actually not expect you to be sitting there. Like for example, if you just sit on this helipad, and you could literally snipe enemies from so freaking far away, and that actually does get pretty OP in my personal opinion. I feel like a lot of people are gonna be using this now for just attacking enemies from very far away, but also just gaining a lot of advantages, because really this oil rig over here does have quite a lot of hiding spots which you guys could take if you do need to shelter yourself. So really, this could become very good at killing enemies from range. And then the last spot, which I also happen to really enjoy and find incredibly useful, is sitting on top of hills like this. As you guys can see, it has a lot of space and you guys are able to aim down very nice. You're obviously not going to be able to aim like this low. However, if you want to kill enemies from very long range, like I said, you can easily reach up to people's bases here, and it's going to be incredibly useful to actually use. Like, these are non-accessible spots on the map, but if you think creatively, you could really make them super useful. Now, the next thing, which is pretty obvious, however, a lot of people don't really look at it, is the fact that even if you guys are going to be spawning in stuff like tanks, like the Vsauce or the BMPT Terminator, the parts will actually still count, because normally a lot of people say that, no, the parts will not count, but as you guys can see, when I call in the Terminator, the parts will go down, and you guys will pretty much be in a spot like you're spawning stuff from your base, but in reality, you're kind of spawning it from far away, if that makes sense. It's a very cool thing to look at, because sometimes you guys may not have enough parts to actually fight enemies straight away after one of your vehicles is destroyed, and you would like to deploy a tank. Well, you guys will actually have to consider the fact that part usage is also a thing in here. Now, the next fact I would like to tell you guys very quickly is, imagine you are left out in a desert with your friend and you want to give them another vehicle that they could use, so you could split vehicles, obviously. However, unfortunately enough, the second that the new vehicle which you spawn will actually land, your vehicle that you already had will actually despawn. So you guys are not able to have more than one vehicle at a time, which is pretty unfortunate. It actually has came in expected, but at the end of the day, a lot of people still don't know about it and they try to use this strategy. So here is some more tips just on that. And now lastly, moving into the last one, however, I believe this will probably be patched in the next few updates, is that the fact that randomly there happens to be some pallets that do actually get stuck in the sky, and I don't know how to actually replicate this glitch, but if you join into really any server, the pallets are literally flying. And by the way, they do have collisions, so you can actually stand on top of it and you can shoot things on top of it with area damage. Planes can also actually collide with it and just crash, so it is pretty cool to actually use this to your advantage, because you could actually just stand on top of there if you like get a DeLorean or something and just snipe people from out there. But once again, it will probably be patched in the next few updates, so we'll just have to see about that. Either way, I do find it incredibly cool. Anyway, for the time being, that is pretty much everything I have for you guys in today's video. Do let me know in the comment section down below a lot more things which you personally figured out about the airdrop. I know there is probably a lot more, but today I wanted to cover the ones which could really help you out. Anyway, I'll see you guys next video. Have a great day, and thanks so much to my channel members.